All right. Before we start today, I want you to think about something. Have you ever been the exception? The one who didn't quite fit, the only one in the room who looked different, thought different, came from a different background. Most of us have been taught that being different is something to manage, to tone down, to work around. But what if it's actually the thing that makes you a better leader? Welcome to the 7 People podcast. I'm Flo, and today's episode is a special one because I'm sitting across 2 very exceptional women who both in a very different ways have made it their mission to challenge what leadership looks like. Ingrid Tappin, welcome. She's a leadership strategist, founder of Diverse Leaders in Tech and the author of Exceptionals, a book that's already making waves. And Ingeborg van Harten, the founder of 7 People, my boss, and full disclaimer, someone I consider to have quite the exceptional leadership style. Welcome to the both of you.
Thank you very much.
So let me start today by asking the same question that I just asked the listeners. Have you ever felt like the exception? Ingrid, start with you.
Yes. Well, I know what it feels like to be the exception. I mean, I work in tech. I'm a woman of color. I'm queer. So when I walk into a room or an event that is organized by the tech industry, I'm often the exception.
Yes. Ever you, Ing?
I think I have a few things that are the same, but again, still very different. Got a job in Australia. I worked for a big architecture firm. And all of a sudden, I was no longer the person who spoke English as a first language.
Yeah.
And the first time I really felt like the exception was when I realized they have something like ahead of me. They're better than me because my English was not so fluent. Yeah. And even though we still all look like each other, I was definitely the exception. And later on in life, I've worked in a lot of leadership teams where I was literally the only woman. Or the only young person, or it felt like I was the only young person. But the most intense one was actually the one where I realized that my first language mattered a lot. And I was the only person who didn't speak English as a first language.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Very interesting. I'm just wondering, was this like feeling of being the exception in the room the motivation to write this book for you?
Well, I think it's a longer story. So like I was born in Barbados.
Yeah.
I lived in Seattle until I was 5. And then my sister and I moved with my parents to the Netherlands. So I grew up in Rotterdam.
Yeah.
And when I came here as a 5-year-old girl with pigtails, I didn't speak the language. So I needed to learn Dutch really soon when we went to school. I didn't come from Curaçao or Bonaire. So it was very difficult for people to place me. Where are you really from? And I noticed, I think as a very small girl, like, okay, it's super important to speak the language because that's what makes you fit in even when you're small, right? Fit in a group and they want to play with you. And when I got a little bit older, I also realized, it really matters if I tell people if I'm from Barbados or if like my mother's from Suriname or if I grew up in if I lived in the United States because they frame you a certain way. Mm-hmm. And I think, or I know that because of that exception, I could fit into different worlds, so I understood all the different worlds because they were part of my identity, but I never fit into one world 100%.
No.
Right? So at a certain point, I think unconsciously started to realize I need to be really fast in creating a sense of belonging for myself when I step into a new room where I am the exception.
Yeah. And creating that belonging for yourself. So can you explain a bit what you mean by that?
So because I think everybody has this need to belong somewhere.
Yeah.
But if it is so in your face that you do not belong, or people even, tell you that you do not belong. Hey, you're not from here. Where are you from? And blah, blah, blah. Or that you look different. You pick up cues really fast. Mm-hmm. So I became kind of fluid at adapting to the room to make sure that at least I could fit in that sense. And I could adapt to this world. I could adapt to that world because I knew, I could see the cultural cues and the things you should say that you should not say. And it was easy for me to operate across different subcultures and worlds.
It sounds like a superpower.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, to answer your question, why did I write this book? At the one hand, I thought, okay, sometimes I'm adapting so much that I feel a little bit lonely. When can I be 100% Ingrid? And but as I came to work, in my career, that's when I realized, wait, being conscious of my ability to adapt, but also being conscious that it's important for me to be authentic, and then the impact that I can have with that combination, that is my superpower.
Yeah.
And I started to see that I should embrace that I am the exception. Even say, no, I'm not the exception. I am exceptional because I do not fit the quote unquote norm.
The status quo.
Yes.
And in your book, you also describe something you call the Sameness Trap. This is the idea that organizations keep promoting the same type of leader. So not the exception in the room or the exceptional leader, but the predictable, familiar, safe person. The never change a winning team mindset you described, I believe.
Yeah.
So can you maybe elaborate a bit on what you mean and what type of leader that is and why this is a problem?
Yeah, so the sameness trap is not really about a type of leader, but a system that rewards a type of leader.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've read the book The Safe Vinkjes from Joris Luijendijk, you know that he did a lot of research, read a lot of other people's work, and he summarized there are like 7 hidden advantages that people have that accelerates them to be the top.
Yeah.
And this is being white, being straight, being male, highly educated, your parents highly educated, in this case, born in the Netherlands, etc. And the funny thing is that only 3% of people carry all these 7 vinkjes. Yeah. But if you zoom in to people at the top, people who have influence and decision-making power, and that can be business, politics, tech, industries, suddenly everybody at the top has these 7 hidden advantages.
Yeah.
And this is why the system is built on this sameness trap, because it's not only about that you look the same, but if you have the same background, the same experience, you also behave the same, you hire the same. You have an idea that the way that you achieve success or what high performance looks like is all built around this very narrow mold of what high performance looks like. And that is the sameness trap, because you're not deliberately, but the system rewards that, but you're keeping out people who do not fit that, let's say, 7 vinkjes mold.
Yeah, because why change a winning team?
Yes.
But that doesn't bring innovation. I mean, Ing, you worked already with a lot of cool startup scale-ups. Do you recognize this? Like, do you see a lot of leaders at the top that have the 7 vinkjes? Or
yes, of course they are there. There are way more of them than you would say the exceptions are the leaders. But I think this has also been proven, like who gets investment money?
Yeah.
Investors generally are part of the Safe Vinkjes Club, and they want to bet on something that feels safe.
Yeah.
So a lot of the money goes to founders who in their eyes are predictable and safe and come from a similar background. If you look at the difference between male and female investments, it's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost hardly no female founders get funding. And why is it so hard? Not because there's less female founders, but because there's less female investors. And then male investors are a little bit scared to invest in female founders because there's not so many of them with a proven track record.
Exactly.
So a lot of the scale-ups that I work for, you see that there are more of those men in the leadership teams, and that they always say, yes, I want more diversity and I want a better mixed team. But when it then comes down to hiring a really key role for that team, you see, the recruiter actually put forward 5 CVs. And that recruiter looked like the founder. And the 5 CVs that were put forward, there was only one exception in that
in the 5
group.
CV. Yeah, because that's the sameness trap, right? So you are exactly what you say. We are designed to reward predictability. Mm-hmm. So when we say we need to hire for culture fit, what we're actually saying is we want to hire somebody who did the same successful thing as the last guy did before. And this is not the fault of the zevenvinker, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
It is just that it is rewarded to do the same thing the same way. And there is not a clear way to recognize how difference is not a liability, but how it could be an advantage in your organization.
Because actually what you then should do in hiring processes is not hire a cultural fit, but somebody that will add something to your culture that is different.
It's important to at least think about it before you say we need somebody that fits the culture.
Yeah.
Ask yourself the question, why do we want this person to fit the culture? And what is it that we are not seeing because we have this sameness culture?
Yeah, and question, because what is the risk of doing that same thing? Because, for example, you, Ingeborg, from your experience, what is the risk if you, for example, build a company around the Sameness Trap? So you hire 10 Peters with the same age, with the same looks, and they are going to hire...
That eventually the services and the products that you're creating are also no longer a fit with all of humanity. I think that would be the easiest answer, because you're going to think in a way that you create something, a service, a product, a tool that fits the people who are creating it.
Yeah.
If they're all the same, you don't get that holistic view. But also it's very hard to change later on. So we work with a lot of startups, and we always say you have to start relatively early in hiring different characters, hiring different languages, if the language is an option, of course, to be English, because the longer you don't do that, the less attractive you become for people who will feel different or the exception, the more you start to rely on that sameness.
Yeah.
And then you do get companies, you have them in the Netherlands, where 80-90% of the people look and feel and talk the same.
Yeah.
And they lose eventually their competitive advantage,
yes.
their edge.
Yeah. And I would even add to that what the risk is, because AI just walked into our leadership rooms or our startup or our teams, and AI is trained on patterns, so it copies the sameness, so the loop gets tighter, and we are now automating this predictability. And everybody is talking about how are we going to make sure that we do not lose the human edge, and we need to add something that is not that AI cannot replicate. And the only thing AI cannot replicate is our lived experience. So our identities and the intelligence and the capabilities that we have developed because of who we are, and especially people who do not fit that template or the status quo, they develop so much advantages if they are conscious about it. And that's what I call identity intelligence in the book. So it is also a way to mitigate the risk of AI that is accelerating sameness.
We have a lot of leaders with different backgrounds, right? We know there exists, but how is it then possible that our current systems or our current ways of work have such a hard time finding them or identifying them?
Well, this is a question that became my obsession over the past 15, 20 years. So how do we then, how can we, spot, grow and scale this difference in a way that it is not only like these individual outliers? And what I discovered while I was working with leadership teams and coaching founders and building, diverse leaders in tech, is that there are two types of leaders, right? Because there are 79% of us do not have these 7 advantages, right? So we're also at the top. How can that be? And what I saw is that you have leaders that choose to go and lead from lane 1. And what they do is they copy the behavior of the 3%, because that is the lane that brings you to success.
It's also the safe lane.
The safe lane. Yeah, it's predictable. You might have to, tone yourself down a little bit. You have to adapt your accent to the corporate way of
dress a little bit different, a bit more boring.
Yeah, exactly.
Blue suit. I'm picturing that.
Or like a lot of what female leaders do, or what's expected from them to be successful is be more masculine or whatever. So they copy the behaviors of the 3% in lane 1 and they become successful. And that's how they reach the top. But there's also a group that says, no, I am going to lead from what makes me unique. I'm not going to sand myself down. I'm going to use what maybe the world around me is calling my weakness. And I'm going to use it as a sharp tool. And what you see, these leaders, they lead from their identity and they don't just reach the top, they outperform it at top. These are the ones that are really using their identity to their advantage, also the identities of people that feel attracted to leaders like this. And they create totally new products, markets, industries, and movements. And they lead from what I call this lane 2. I started looking at these leaders in lane 2. And I also started asking them, how did you get here? How did you, become so exceptional?
Yeah.
And one thing that they keep telling me was, the world told me, this is who you are. And I said, you can believe what you want, but this is who I want to be. And hearing those stories over and over and over, it clicked and I saw a pattern. And I saw this is something that you can, or that I want to put into a model so that it becomes a lot easier for us to recognize difference, recognize what is the power in somebody's identity, and give us the opportunity to recognize it in ourselves and see what is it that makes me exceptional, but also recognize that difference in others so that you can help this person grow it. And then you can start training teams and scaling these identity advantages that you have when you embrace the fact that difference is kind of the blueprint for innovation.
Because you say that lane 2 leaders outperform. So why aren't we then all leading from lane 2?
I think it's not because we don't want to, but as you just said, Ingeborg, it is the quote unquote easy path, emotionally not always. But sameness is what is recognized. Sameness is, if you look at all these tools, that we use in talent development and team performance, etc.
These type of things. Yeah.
Exactly. They were all built around this, in a structure or in a system that was designed for this status quo. And within that status quo, certain behaviors are rewarded. So lane 1 is super clear to see, okay, if I do this, then I can go to level 1. If I do this, I can go to level 2, and so on. Lane 2, we don't have anything that measures, spots, or recognizes and rewards you for being that. And things that are not rewarded, they are not done often.
Oh, I think the best example here I have is when you do DISC assessments. The D stands for driven, action-oriented results, and is often associated with leaders.
Yeah.
And the opposite of a D is an S.
Yeah.
An S is steadiness. It's high on empathy. Often they do things together, and also a bit more introvert. And I'm a accredited DISC facilitator, so I've done the studies in this. And then what you see in teams is that within leadership teams, you have a really high proportion of Ds and a very low number of S's. Often they're not there at all. It's because being extrovert and being action and results driven is rewarded.
Yes.
What happens is those teams have relatively low empathy. They're bad in communicating to the team on time. If changes are going to happen, they don't understand change management very well. And they don't reward people who sit in that S zone, who really care for others, want to bring others along. But that is often what the company and what the actual people need. And therefore, people who are, and they recognize themselves in this S profile of DISC, I am someone who prefers steadiness and calmness, and I'm a little bit introvert. Doesn't mean they're not great leaders, but they don't associate themselves with leaders. And I think these people then decide, therefore, I'm probably not leadership material.
Yeah, that's me, literally.
They're never going to be recognized for that. Whereas I think the world needs a lot more of those.
Yes. If you know that your identity was formed in a way that you are super driven by creating, for instance, safety in a team, and you are not always on top screaming, this is where I want us to go, but you're really trying to create an environment of healthy conflict, that everybody is heard, even the people who maybe speak a little bit softer, then suddenly this is, and especially in our time and age, this is not a lack of leadership skills. This is the leadership skill you need to develop and value in, high pressure, fast growing organizations, because if you do not bring everybody along, it's a risk, right? So we have to reframe the words that we use when we talk about what is a leadership capability, skill, or advantage.
I also remember at some point being told that I was quite high on energy and that I should tone it down.
Oh, yeah?
But I get really excited sometimes about a plan or a strategy, or in this case, I think it was hiring someone for my team. I told my new manager, "Oh, I'm so excited. She's coming in this afternoon." He's like, "Tone it down, girl. You're very excited." And I remember going home and thinking, this is me. This is what my character is built around. This is, if you ask anyone, you're positive, you have a lot of energy, and you get excited.
Yeah.
And to be told that was something that was bad, even though it was something that was a business thing and it was actually something to be genuinely excited about, felt really wrong.
Painful. And and that's, I think, is very important what you're saying, because you decided to say, okay, I'm not going to tone it down. But if you are a young, junior, and you hear that over and over again, you start to go and adapt to lane one.
Tone it down.
Yeah, you tone it down. But I remember then.
And it's a cost.
And this is 10 years ago. And I really feel like the book should have been there 10 years ago. That I went home and I said, this is so wrong to tell someone, tone down your energy, tone down your positivity, because it doesn't fit as in that case, I was not C-level, but I was director level. So apparently that was not fit, that type of energy for director level. I'm like, I actually don't think I did anything wrong.
No.
I was being me.
Yeah.
And it felt like at that moment, I shouldn't be me. And therefore I would never, in the end, be promoted, get that top job, because they expected me to fit into that
mold.
Lane one, into the mold, like quiet it down, don't be overexcited. And
now, what is that now to be you? What has that brought you over the years?
Well, over the years, I made the same mistake a few more times. To join leadership teams where they really expected you to be the same as them and not so much of me.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually that got to a point where I felt I don't feel right anymore joining a new leadership team.
Mm-hmm.
I felt, and my choice was, then I'll do it on my own. Not necessarily in a team initially, but just by myself, because then at least I can be me. It was so important to not lose that part of yourself and your character and not conform to what others feel. But I think there's a lot of people here who don't get to that point.
And now you've built 7 people, a company that is so different from most people and culture companies. You really have a distinctive way of doing things. Yeah, I mean, that's also why you are a business case in my book.
But it also
because it's really a choice that you made, even though it was a hard choice. I'm going to be an identity-driven leader. You might not have called it that at the moment, but for me, that is what you decided to do, and you created a culture within your organization. It is that you all have different experiences because of who you are, and that's where the diversity is leveraged.
I think also maybe a lot of listeners, young HR professionals, are listening and are like, okay, I see this leader that is actually a lane 1, lane 2 leader, but this person is adaptive.
You want them to shift from lane 1 to lane 2.
Exactly. How can you kind of challenge them or ask the right questions, or if you see the pattern as an HR professional?
If you read the book, I introduce a framework.
Yeah.
So the Identity Intelligence Framework, it is a quadrant. You can locate yourself on this map and you can find your origin story. So this is not who you are, but this is where you began, right? And there are 4 origin stories. You have the outsider identity. So that's the identity that was formed by, being seen as really different. Maybe you were the only black kid in the street or the only gay boy in the soccer team. And they let you know you are not part of the in-group, really deliberately. And this developed in you this drive for justice. And being able to also, that's a gift of spotting injustice and also coming up with ideas to make it more just.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the patchwork identity. That's mine. Living across worlds, code switching really well. And that gives you a gift of being able to translate across differences. Then you have the underdog identity. That's the origin story where you were underestimated often.
That's mine.
That's yours. Yeah. So saying, you're not it because you are too energetic, too outspoken, or you're not intellectual enough, or you don't have a university degree, or you don't know how to. You have dyslexia, your brain wiring, whatever it is. They told you were not it, and then you develop this really drive to create worthiness and value, and you become super good at spotting value in people and in places where other people are not looking. And then the fourth one is the unseen identity. This is often an identity where you were overlooked.
That's me.
Is that you? Yeah. They couldn't really put you in a box. Maybe you had to move a lot when you were young and you didn't speak the language and they left you a little bit behind. And then you had to see, okay, how am I going to reinvent myself here again and create a space where I feel safe? And that also gives you this super gift of being able to create safe spaces for others. So when you are, your question, this HR person, and you use this framework, you are not looking at people in the sense of, is it a woman? Is it a person of color? Is this a
I think that's really important to mention because I think the whole D&I has gotten almost like it's become a dirty word. And I also feel it was very shallow.
Yeah.
It was always about
identity traits.
Yeah, it's like, but things you can't change. And also they're very superficial.
The fact that my skin is this color, in essence, doesn't really matter, right? But having this skin color in a system where people have ideas about who you are because of your skin color or because of your gender or because of your sexual orientation, that is what is important. And how you dealt with those tensions between who am I and what does the world say about me? And being aware of those tensions. And then also being aware what kind of skills you have developed because of those tensions. And then also using those skills on purpose. That is important. And this map gives you, as an HR professional, the map literally to ask people the questions about their origin stories. Understand if they understand that they have developed certain skills, leadership capabilities, and do they understand how they can utilize them in a team or in their role? And that is kind of the extra.
Yeah. And that's also what I thought was interesting, because I think personally then for me the challenge is, okay, I see this person with the 7 things what we just talked about, but even that person can feel the exception, right? Because,
exactly.
And it's not created for the exception; it's created for everyone.
Everybody. It's created. This is a map for the 97%.
Yeah,
and it's also a map for the 3%, because it's not your fault that you were born with 7 vinkjes.
No,
I just hope that you know that you have these advantages that you didn't have to do anything for.
No,
but that you also have a responsibility, especially if you are a leader, to get people on board who have different life experiences than yours or than the people in your team, and that you are able to recognize them and help people feel that they are empowered to also use them. And that the difference is your power and that you want more of it.
Yeah. And what I really noticed is what the one key thing for high-performing teams is trust.
Yeah.
And I feel like this can really help build that trust in leadership teams, because it's not like this typical leadership assessment that's just gonna point out your...
It's very personal.
Yeah, because you can immediately, you can open up, like, where did it came from that you are the unseen, like what happened in your past. And it gives a bit more depth.
It gives more depth, and it gives a level playing field.
Yeah.
Because everybody has an identity. Everybody formed an identity. Everybody lived in a system and developed instincts and ways of reading the room, ways of building trust, ways of driving change because of who they are and the system that they worked in. And if you're sitting with a team, diving into each other's origin stories is a super quick way of creating trust with everybody at the same level.
Yeah.
I think when we think of strengths, we sometimes do Strengths Finder.
Yeah.
Strengths Finder gives every individual,
Yeah.
and then as a team, the opportunity to know what is my natural behavior and my superpower.
Yeah.
And this is almost like, well, I have way more depth than that. There's a superpower that comes from where I was born, how I was brought up, how I went through school, what happened in the first years of work. And that has formed me in a way that I can now use these strengths,
Exactly.
which has been identified, but also I can own them. So for example, one of my strengths is positivity. And I was always told it was too much.
Mm-hmm.
And now I go, well, actually, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
I understand that this positivity was always part of me. It's also a way of coping with being the underdog and then trying to prove yourself.
Yes.
And then, okay, I'll just bring all this energy and positivity in the room and I'll change it and I'll fix it and I'll make it better. Now it makes sense.
Yeah.
And for example...
Easier to leverage also when you know it.
Yeah, it almost feels like it gives me something to be proud of versus something to think that was always a little bit different and not necessarily appreciated. If I would come in wearing a lot of colorful colors and I'm on one of my most high energy days, I probably wouldn't get the job.
No.
Because then you're too much.
Yeah.
Whereas now I would think, well, that's actually what I bring. That's who I am.
Yeah.
And this is what you should leverage.
Yeah.
And if you don't choose it for that reason, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Because
I love what you're saying, Ingeborg, because identity intelligence is, I'm not introducing it as a leadership framework that has to replace everything that there is. For me, it is a layer that has been missing.
Because the frameworks are really nice and they explain what you have, but this also explains why you have it. And that for me was like the real big eye opener. Like, oh, it all felt like a puzzle that fell into each other, you know?
Yeah, great.
But it is a 7 people podcast. So we're gonna round this up by making it proudly pragmatic, one of our favorite core values. I have a little case. Let's say I'm an HR professional or a founder of a cool company, and I've just finished your book and I want to start working with this tomorrow. I got all excited. And apart, of course, from taking the test, what should be the first step for these people to take?
And I had the exact same question because sometimes it still feels like I'm introducing a new framework. And then my feeling was, because we also did this with the team, is that it's very strong for team building. And if you do team building the right way, it's not we're going to play ping pong or we're going to go bowling. It's actually creating a space to be vulnerable, to open up, to really get to know each other. If you do this with a team, you say read the book or take the test and we'll discuss it. And you take the space and the time to open up a little bit about your background. And then to be able to share, that's shaped me into the person I am today. And therefore these and these and these things I recognize are very important to me. Those are probably things you've never spoken about. Creating value for others, being able to bring safety into a room. These are not normal terms that we use, or not enough, in leadership teams or team building today. I think team building, they always ask us, how can I build that trust? We always say they have to spend more time on team building. But then that team building, taking that to the next level, for me, could be part of this.
Yeah. On my website, weareexceptionals.com, there is also a resource page. So besides the assessment, you can also download the Exceptional Team Canvas. And that's exactly designed for this, so that you can sit with each other, share your origin story, your advantages, your risks, your blind spot, etc. But also express to your team, what do you need because of your identity advantage to take the next growth step? So really practical, make it simple. In my case, patchwork identity. I'm great at being the chameleon and adapting. But it's super important to be authentic. So from my team, please ask me questions. Be curious to uncover more of who I am. So that gives me more space to embrace my complexity. Yeah. Underdog identity. Worthiness, value, we know the advantage, but the risk is that you are overproving yourself, right? And that you can feel a little bit insecure. Am I good enough? So from your team, you need that they empower you.
We're coming to an end, and I wanted to ask you, the both of you, a final questions. And I want an honest answer, obviously. So, Ingrid, what do you hope someone feels after they put this book down?
I've been touched by a few people who've sent me messages on what happened to them, which I was so surprised, but super grateful. They felt that this book gave them the language that they needed to articulate something that they have always felt intuitively. And now, because they have this language, they are able to be the leader that they knew they could be somewhere, but didn't know how to do that. And if that is what this does, even if it's with one or two people, I have already made the impact that I wanted to.
You made the gut tangible.
Yes, that's such a great sentence, to make the gut tangible.
And Ingeborg, what is the one thing you're going to do differently after reading Exceptionals as a leader?
Yeah, probably challenge even more when I see that sameness happens. So for me, this was a really powerful book because it felt, I felt like the exception for a long time. And also for me, it felt like, no, I am part of the 97%. I'm not the exception. I'm actually the rule. Other people are the exception. So why are they my boss, or why are they the leader? So it felt like injustice in a way, but also I felt very empowered. And I think when I see it now again and I see it happening, people fall into that sameness trap, that I can challenge them in a different way. And not because I think it's wrong, but because I can say, why don't you read this? Why have a look? Maybe look for someone slightly different because that's what you need. And not the whole hire someone who's queer or black or female, because that is what we've become to believe is D&I. But someone with a different type of background, therefore it brings something different to the team.
Yeah.
And
something necessary to the team.
Necessary, but also understanding that those leaders, what they think is necessary, ask the team, and they'll need something very different. So I think for me, what I took from the book is the understanding that there's this whole range of different leaders and backgrounds, and we need all of them. And you will always be able to identify with one of them. So people who don't feel like they could be a leader in the past because they didn't fit that mold, after reading this, they hopefully feel that.
Yeah. And if I can say one more thing that I hope that this book does, that practitioners like you also have a blueprint for changing the system. Because it's not only about our individual leadership. We should redesign that system so that we can be who we are and bring to the table and into the rooms what is needed to, lead teams to high performing, innovate companies, industries, etc.
So, if this episode lighted up your fire, go to weareexceptionals.com, take the test and read Ingrid's book. See you next time, and thank you Personio for sponsoring this one.